Hey folks, John Kelly. Welcome back to the Law Enforcement Life Coach Sometimes Heroes Need Help podcast. This podcast is being brought to you by On Target Claims, where their motto is on target from setback to settlement. Now listen, a little background. I've worked with these guys on the job, on the street for over 25 years, man, and they have always done the right thing and have always had my back. Now, in this second chapter, let them have your back. Right? You wouldn't go to court without an attorney. Why would you go up against an insurance company without representation, right? They represent you, the policyholder, when you go up against an insurance company submitting a claim. And I can tell you this, right? From beginning to end, they're going to be with you during the entire process. They're going to properly document that claim with the latest technology. And then when it comes time to getting things fixed, they've got a complete stable of vendors that are certified that are going to get it done right the first time. They also offer a pre-loss planning and policy review. So you know exactly what you're covered for, right? Make sure that you're adequately covered. The time to find out that you're not isn't after that horrific event. Okay? So give my friends a call at On Target Claims, 561-208-1775, or go to their website, ontargetclaims.com. They cover the entire state of Florida, offices in Fort Lauderdale and Tampa, and tell them John sent you. And now let's get to the episode.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, man. Hey, folks, John Kelly. Welcome back to the Law Enforcement Life Coach Sometimes Heroes Need Help podcast. Sitting down with Greg Zaroslinski. Oh, fucking guy, man. You know when you meet somebody, you go, "Oh, that guy." What a good egg, man. Good peer. He's the president of Performance Protocol. Maybe you heard of him. And he is having an impact in this space of ours like no one I know. It's all about people, man. It's all about people. It's about the human element. And I think we've gotten so far away from that we don't even know what it looks like anymore. And Greg is doing an amazing job of reconnecting us with what matters. And so I'm blessed. I met him at a conference in Orlando a little while back, and we've been kind of chasing each other on LinkedIn. And now I get to sit down and talk with him. Greg, brother, man. Before you have to jump on another plane and fly someplace else in the country, holy smokes, brother! Thanks for taking the time, man.
Hey, no worries. My pleasure. I've been looking forward to it, and I apologize at the back and forth. But at the end of the day, hey, we're here, and
Yeah, man.
we can get it rolling and talk shop, and then find out, hey, if we can touch some people, inspire some people, but more importantly, trying to work and create some impactful change.
That's it. That's the name of the game, man. So this is very much a second chapter for you. Maybe even a third or a fourth. So before you were the president of Performance Protocol, flying around the country, helping agencies with their recruitment and retention and coaching programs and all this. Before of all that, man, what? Give me a little snippet, brother, on you and a little background.
Yeah, so I don't know how far we go back, because at the end of the day,
I don't want to
listen. We can extend the show to 17 or 18 hours.
Let's before you started wearing skinny jeans, bro. Okay, so I want to come out of the gate swinging on you. You know. Holy crap, man! All right, here you go. It just happened. Yeah, man.
That's so great, and I get so many great compliments,
dude. Listen,
I take them as compliments.
I just said, hey, I went up to a group of guys. They go, "Who's the motherfucker wearing the skinny jeans?" Oh, that's great. That's great. All right, well, I have to talk to him about that. You're talking to a guy who still has a pair of Z Cavariccis in his closet from 1984, bro. So you know.
Well, why are you rocking those?
You got to cut me some slack, man. Oh shit. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Yeah. So talk to me about you, brother, man. Give me a little history.
Yeah. So I think just, going back, just, starting kind of pseudo beginning at the end of the day, much like many of us in middle America, I wasn't cut out for the college game. So I'm not going to go down that road, but, kind of long story short, went into the military, did
in the Navy, right?
things there.
In the Navy?
So I was in the Army first, then transitioned to the Navy. So
Okay.
that's a great story. And actually, I might tee off with that because you'll appreciate this.
Yeah.
So I get out of the Army and I'm working. So ironically, I was running as a first responder. I was working EMS as a immediate EMT,
Okay.
and I was working. I was doing that part time, and then also I was running, working at my uncle's bar, which is a fantastic idea. At 21.
Yeah, I know.
Um, so I'm shooting, moving, communicating, during the day, and then tending bar at night, and had just separated from the military, and things are going well.
Okay.
Which was to say that, hey, I was just having a lot of fun,
Okay. I like well.
and
Well's good.
woke up one day, I hadn't shaved, and like, yeah, I, I woke up one day, I hadn't shaven in like 5 6 days. I woke up next to somebody I didn't know, and I'm like, holy shit, your life is a wreck. Like, you need to go back in the military. You need to do that now. So, suffering from a wicked bad hangover, I donned some running shorts and a shirt, and I didn't drive. I ran the 7 miles to the recruiting center, and I was looking to join. Honestly, I was looking to join the Marine Corps because I'd worked with some guys that were force recon guys, and I went force recon back in the day.
Sure.
And so I jog up there, and they were closed. And I happened to turn the corner, and there was this woman in, all white uniform and, rack of ribbons and, nice smile. And she says, "Can I help you?" And I said, I don't think so. And she said, "What do you look for?" I was looking for the Marine Corps recruiters. She said, "Well, we have, X, Y, or Z, whether it was, SWIC or Teams or whatever."
Sure.
And 2 weeks later, I'm on a plane to Chicago to go,
That's
to the
a
temporary
hell of a
processing.
recruiter right there, my friend.
So it was it was interesting, and very much what I needed. I needed to, kind of transition. And the biggest thing was, kind of going back to my standing motto: if you got to eat shit, don't nibble. And
Right.
break it off. If you're going to do something, do it, and do it now, and don't look back. And that kind of propelled me into it. I did a lot of things, a ton of deployments, and at the end of the day, being married, that now being married kind of later in my career and having two kids, I think my wife was, sick of the deployments. I mean, I lived overseas while she was still living stateside, going to school. Like, there was just a ton of separation,
That's got to be tough.
and yeah, more so on her because, I mean, when
Right.
you're in the thick of it, and you're living it, it doesn't really affect or impact you, but then fast forward, I had a couple of people that owed me some favors, and down in Millington, which is where the orders are cut for the Navy. And my buddy was like, "Hey, you can go anywhere you want in the country. We'll send you as a recruiter." And I'm like, bet. So I call my wife and I say, "Hey, we can go anywhere we want."
Right. Where do you want to
Um,
go?
so I had been to Sedona and been rock climbing and whatever in Arizona. And my wife said, "Hey, I've never really been to Arizona, but it sounds a hell of a lot better than Michigan." And
Touche.
so I would end up taking orders to Navy Recruiting District, Phoenix, and it was the single greatest decision. Kind of 20 years later, single greatest decision I made, but I didn't know at the time.
Of
I thought it
course.
was a freaking sentence. So quickly became known on the recruiting front of things, and rose through the ranks. But we started getting recognized nationally. I was, recruiter of the year runner up twice, which I always tell people in isolation doesn't sound all that
No, because
impressive.
I'm going to ask you, how many recruiters are there across
Yeah,
the country?
so 5,200.
Okay, 50.
So
So two of 5,200.
yeah, and I got beat by the same guy twice, which even makes the wound a little more salty.
Right.
It was some cat, and I can't remember his name, and I wish I'm gonna have to go back and look it up. But he was a cat out of Miami, just
No
ripping
kidding.
people off the boat,
Oh
from what
yeah,
I
that's
hear.
easy, bro.
Uh,
Oh yeah, he had a big
it's
net. He had a bigger net
like
than you, bro.
like
Oh my
fishing with
god.
dynamite down there.
Oh my god.
So yeah, it was great. I took literally the worst station in the country, turned it into the best station in the country, and got meritoriously promoted, and what have you.
That's great.
And then from there, it was, kind of, I started to cut my teeth in business, and really on the speaking front of things, started to propel a little bit. And like, you know what, I've done my time. I think at that point, I think I had 11, maybe 12 years in, and decided to cut bait. I said, "Hey,
Hey,
I'll try the civilian sector."
have you always had like an entrepreneurial like spirit to you? Because I find like that first responders, like we get stuck in this hourly wage employee type
Yeah.
mentality. I mean, that's a complete departure, no?
I think, well, and it's wild that you asked that, and I think the parallel for me is crazy. The answer is, I think it was always there. I mean, shit, I was hawking T-shirts out of my garage at, at 12.
All right, so yeah, so
So I think it was
that's something that
there,
you did. That was your jam.
but I think the one thing for me, even coming from the military and having that steady pay, having that great insurance, having all that stuff, it was, I never had that fear about, hey, I can't do it on my own, or hey, I'm not going to be able to make money, because guess what? Friday would typically be payday, or the first or the 15th would typically be payday, and you only eat what you kill. So I think it was that drive that I had was, hey, I can self-sustain, and then trying to figure it out. And I think the blessing for me, and even as I look back into all this time, was kind of two pivotal instances. One was I overheard, and I guess let me preface this. I often say, you never know what people really think about you until you accidentally hear them talking about you and they don't know that you're there.
Right.
Um, and I'd overheard my wife talking to her sister, and she said, and I had just left the service, and I wasn't making any money. It was quite frankly, it was a bit of a terrifying time. Let's just be
Sure.
honest. And I was trying to figure stuff out, and I overheard her talking to her sister, and she said, he's probably one of the most motivated and driven people I've ever met in my entire life. It's crazy to watch. And it was at that moment, it was like something clicked in
Dude,
me, and I
that was a
thought, okay,
gift,
somebody
man.
else
That
sees.
was a
Yeah,
gift that she gave
and,
you.
and she had no idea I was
No,
there,
she
so
had
I
no
had to
idea
come.
she
I had to
gave you
come
the
home.
gift.
Yeah,
Oh man.
yeah. So then we had a conversation, and she had a good job. She was working in the IT world for a company in the greater Phoenix area. And I said, hey, look, just give me 6, 8, 10 months, and let me kind of figure out. Let me fail. Let me do this. And she did. And, she had great insurance. She had a good job, and my goal at that point was, okay, let me position this so if she never wants to have to work, she doesn't have to work.
Right.
And really, that was my kind of modus operandi for many years, was getting to that point where it's, hey, can I do well enough so that I can gift her back the freedom that she
Right.
gave me, which was
Right.
not having to go work for the man every day.
She's stepping in the breach, man. You
Yeah.
want to reward her for that. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, so not to get too far off tangent. So I
No,
think yes is the answer. I think it was always a little part of me.
right.
And I didn't really know how to uncover it, because I didn't grow up with that. My dad was a line worker at Ford Motor, and my grandpa was a worker at Ford Motor. My great grandpa, same stuff over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And it was funny. I just went fishing Monday with my grandpa,
Oh wow.
and we went out on Lake Erie and went walleye fishing. And I told him, I said, hey, there's something I never told you. And it took me until I was like 35 to tell my dad. And my dad passed about 10, 12 years ago.
Right.
And because my dad wanted me to go work at Ford, and he was like, hey, I got an in, all you do is go take the
Sure.
test, and this, that, and the other. And so I go in to take the test, and I look around the room, and it's all guys that are my age now, but grizzly beards, and
Yeah.
just torn up, and they look like they had been through it, and they're all testing to go work at Ford Motor. I looked around the room, they put the test in front of me, and I was like, I have to use the bathroom. I went to the bathroom, and I dipped. I never went back.
You bailed, man.
And
Yeah.
I went to the parking lot, and I was like, okay, you got to
No,
figure out some
not
other
gonna be
way, some
me,
other path
man.
forward.
Yeah.
So and back in the day, you think they're paying 25, $30 an
Oh
hour,
yeah.
and when we were kids, that was a ton of money.
Huge, right?
And so I never told. So I finally told my grandpa that story Monday, and he was like, I was wondering for all
Yeah.
those years,
Yeah.
I knew that you were smart, but I
How
couldn't figure out
didn't
how
you
you
get
couldn't pass a
hired?
test.
Yeah. How did you not pass that test? All you had to do was put your name on it, man. The fix was in.
Yeah,
Oh shit.
yeah.
Wow.
So
So you got this entrepreneurial spirit, man. Um, you're trying to figure some things out. You're out of the military. And
yeah,
what's
so
your
it
next
just
move,
it
bro?
just kind of
What's your next
started, man.
move?
I started speaking. I got on the national circuit. I was speaking at colleges, high schools, whatever. At that point, anybody that would.
Start speaking about what, bro?
So I built these two campaigns. it was funny because obviously looking back now that how everything comes full circle. It was, try, take responsibility yourself, and can't, capable, able, not trying. Are you the first part or the second part? So I built these two talk tracks that kind
Okay.
of just blew up, and all of a sudden everyone was like, wait, and this is before kind of the self-help world really got
Sure.
big, and people really started looking internally and saying, hey, like, am I the problem
Am I the
here? Do I
problem? Yeah,
have
man. Right.
self-defeating thoughts? Do I have, self-defeating habits, etc.? And so, and I shined them up, and I'm a fairly good speaker. So when I'm on stage, it's a lot of fun, and as long as you're connected to the content, as you well know,
Yeah.
you can deliver it with a degree and a level of enthusiasm that is, unknown to mankind. So
Sure.
that became my hook. Was I was this
Wow.
kind of young electric guy that could go and deliver some powerful content, and just make people think.
Isn't that awesome,
And
man?
yeah, it
I
was
mean, that's,
awesome till
it's
it was
just,
awesome till it wasn't.
well, everything runs its course, man,
Yeah,
but I mean, balls, kid, just saying, you know what?
yeah,
This is what I'm going to do.
yeah.
And you did
It
it.
was it was that relative. I would say it was that relative Stuart Smalley approach. It was like, I'm good enough, I'm strong enough, and doggone it, people like me.
Yes. No doubt,
And then
man.
I just did. Yeah. Then kind of,
Powerful.
and then from there
Powerful.
it was. Yeah.
You didn't
Thanks.
know. So,
Appreciate that.
dude, you wanna glass over this, man. But I got to stop you. That is so powerful. See, because nobody knows how that guy starts.
Yeah.
Nobody. See, you look at the people who are in the space, and you go, well, this is how they've done it. They've always just done this. There's got to
Yeah.
be a day one, man. There's got to be a day one in the office, and you made your day one,
Yeah. I was on day zero for a long time. So thanks,
dude.
John, for fast forwarding to day one.
Yeah, no, that's really that, Greg. That's impressive, man. I'll never miss an opportunity to bust your balls, but to give you some accolades and props, man. And that's that confidence. It just it carried over. So it was good until it wasn't. All right, so that ran its course. There's some failure there, but then you're getting back up. Talk to me.
Oh, oh God, yeah. I mean, I've had my share of failures, and I think and then you touched on it earlier on, and I'm sure if we were recording at the time, but kind of the addiction component, um, and that's, I think, when I separated from the service and I started to experience success and do bigger and greater things, quote unquote.
Right.
Um, I started to I started to engage and indulge in habits that I hadn't had in the past, and alcohol being one of them, and eating and whatever. So I went from this guy that just got out separate from the service. I was in great shape, and it's kind of I was primed to do well, and success breeds success, but success always, it breeds obstacles too. And I think I became more disjointed and more disconnected in my marriage with my kids, et
Mm.
cetera, because I was chasing what I thought people wanted of me. And it was interesting. So that my wife kind of got sick of me, and we were living out west, and her
Man,
family's back in the
listen,
Midwest.
listen. I love it. My wife kind of got sick of me.
Yeah.
And she must know Mrs. Kelly. They must be related. Oh,
Yeah.
that's funny. She got sick of you a little bit. Yeah, man.
Yeah, and I'm putting that mildly because she's
Right.
probably in earshot.
That's all right, man.
But and no, she knows all that stuff. So
Right.
it was one of those things where she had gotten homesick, and she'd gotten homesick because I wasn't there. I mean, I
You're
was there
absent.
physically, but I was
Emotionally
completely absent.
void.
Yeah.
Yeah, brother.
So then we decided, hey, let's pack up and move back to the Midwest, which
Okay.
was, I'd built a couple other businesses. I had a construction company going, I had a consulting firm. Like, I had a bunch of things going on the business front that were really, really good. And I knew moving to the Midwest was going to ravage my businesses
Right.
if I wasn't there to kind of manage things. And I'd gotten, when in the move, I'd gotten taken advantage of on one of the big investments that I'd made. And at the end of the day, got screwed out of a ton of money because I didn't have the money to go to litigation because I was still a young entrepreneur. And I don't know if those people that might listen, it's litigation's not a poor man's sport.
No, isn't it? It's
So
like it's like a death by attrition. Like
yeah,
if you can't, it's a marathon of legalities.
yeah,
And if you're
yeah,
just set up for a sprint, you're
yeah.
not finishing the race, man.
You got to write a whole bunch of little checks, a whole bunch of little checks to hopefully get a big check at the end. And oftentimes it doesn't work out that way. So we were able to figure out a way to, bifurcate our losses and come out not well, but okay.
Right.
And then moving back to the Midwest, I had no connections in business. I had really no anything. So I just kind of started casting. And somebody had told me one time, like, hey, you're not Fortune 5 material. And I kind of took that as a, not kind of, I took that as a challenge. And so I
Right.
ended up going to work for a Fortune 5 and did fairly well, but I realized very quickly that was not me. And, the corporate bureaucracy and all the levels of, chaos, which now I see on the law enforcement side too,
Not too
was
dissimilar.
not, yeah, was not, it was just wasn't for me.
Right.
And so then in the meantime, I had a friend of mine from Baltimore reach out and he said, hey, there's this guy that, kind of has the similar ethical, boundaries of you and kind of moral compass, if you will. You should look him up. He has a little tax firm that just came out of the debt space and moved into tax firm. And I ended up partnering up with him. Long story short, um, over the course of time, experiencing more monetary success,
Yeah.
more financial success, and that just led me down the road of I was taking on everyone's problems, and I think you talked about this a lot, but I was shouldering everyone else's issues. So if somebody had a money problem in the family, I was taking care of it. Somebody
Yeah, man.
they needed a connection to somebody, I was taking care of it. The business was running holistically on my shoulders, and as I started to endure all that stuff, I had no outlet. It's not like I couldn't comfortably talk to my wife. I couldn't comfortably talk to anybody and tell them the truth of, hey, this is too much for me. Um, and I'm drowning. So I just drowned myself in freaking booze, and it
Right.
got bad, and real bad. And just to be kind of brazenly honest with you and your listeners is, I was at 7 a.m. pull into the liquor store on the way to the office kind of guy,
Right.
for good 6, 8, 10 months before I kind of, not kind of, when I did finally hit rock bottom. But I was like the high, as you know, I was the highest functioning form of alcoholic. I was running a,
Yeah.
multi-million-dollar business. I'm running, multiple, multiple employees, and, I'm kind of bouncing all over the place and still managing, households and whatever. And I think there was a good bit of time where I don't even remember, like, things were happening so quickly. I don't think I remember what was going on in a lot of ways.
Sure.
Um, so finally, and I realized that, hey, I had to make a change, and my wife realized that well before me. And I made the choice of, hey, I'm gonna check myself into, with her help, I'm gonna check myself into a facility and just go, get rid of the noise for a bit.
Yeah, man.
And it was the most fascinating thing. Now I kind of reflect on it and I say, hey, I, yes, I'm an alcoholic. Um, and there's an asterisk, and the asterisk is this: I had a shitty relationship with alcohol, but my problems were I had a huge ego that I didn't really realize that I had. And once I remember, like, it happened yesterday. I was having a conversation with my wife as a freaking white girl wasted, sitting at the hotel waiting to get on a plane the next morning to go to treatment. And she said, "Hey, look, your businesses, everything, all that stuff is temporary. You've done it, time and time again.
Yeah.
Let me handle that. You go take care of you. And you
Hmm.
got 30 days to go take care of you." And it was like, that was the moment where, for me, everything just suppressed and I had permission to just
Dude.
do me. And I had never done that before. And so when I got there, it
Give
was,
you
you
another
know how
gift,
it is. I mean,
bro.
it's, yeah, it was one of those, like, wildly uncomfortable situations where you get there and here I have this giant ego. And even though I don't realize it, I do. And I'm thinking about it, I'm not one of these people. I'm not freaking one of these strung out drug addicts. I'm not freaking,
Yeah.
I'm not shooting up. I'm not doing this. And you realize that you're exactly, later
It,
on, you realize that you're exactly like him, but you spend 72 hours in the hold, waiting to get into, kind of the residential component, and you're negotiating like a mofo. And
mm,
As much as I'm a hell of a negotiator, I lost that
You're
one
not
because
winning that
I
one,
had this.
man. Yeah.
I remember this guy that sat down with me, and this changed everything. And you know how it is. You have that one experience, right? And there was this guy that sat down with me. James is his name, and he was this, just diesel black dude, and he was the kind of the quintessential human being. When you looked at him, you thought this guy is hyper successful. He's super articulate. Yeah. So here find out that he was a worker there, but he went to treatment.
Right.
So he lays out his whole story and tells me about in and out and freaking all the things that he was doing. And at that moment, it was crazy because I went from wanting, like, in the beginning, wanting to be this guy, to then listening to his story and then wanting to experience what he experienced. So it
Right.
was this aha moment, and then that would change everything. So from that, and that was literally on day 1.5. And
Wow.
I said, from this point forward, I'm going back to who I really am at the root, at the core, is, just a good, honest person, you know, and I even talk about it, but at the time when I checked into treatment, and you just saw me recently, I was 200 and probably 31 pounds. And I'm not tall. It's
No,
not like
bro.
I'm 6'5".
No.
I'm five
You were you
six.
were you were as wide as you were tall.
Yeah, and that's fair. That's fair to say. And that might even actually be kind of kind.
Yeah. Well, again,
So it's
you
great.
it's look how far you've come, man. Look how far you've come.
Yeah. And look how far I get to go. I mean, the thing
Right.
is that that's
That's
the journey.
that's been not even charted yet. Um,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing all that, man. Because can I tell you, somebody, the untrained eye looks at you and goes, "Fucking guy, he's got the fuck, you know, he's good looking guy, great shape, beautiful family, successful businessman, flying around the country. All that they see is the iceberg, bro. They
Hmm.
see is what's above water. They have no idea what what it what it took and the experiences below the waterline that got you to where you're at right now. Um, that's a whole that's a game changer, man. And then I'm gonna say again, your wife giving you that gift, man. I got this. Go take care of you.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Oh, that's monumental. I mean, that was it was funny. I saw your reaction, and that was absolutely the game changer. It
Right.
was like just getting that permission, because we never gift ourselves permission, right? Yeah, you're like, hey, just bring it on.
Yeah.
I'm a man. I can handle it all. I can handle it all. And it was when you're at your absolute worst,
Yeah,
and you have
man.
someone that gives a shit about you and says, hey, I got this.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Go do you.
Yeah. We go swimming with an anchor around our neck, and our spouses are the ones to say, no, no, I got the anchor,
Yeah.
go for a swim and let me know when you get back. That's awesome, bro. So you have this journey, you get sober. How long you been sober?
So almost 5 years now. I'm not
That's
even sure.
awesome.
I don't even
Great.
keep track
Yeah,
anymore.
no, no, fuck. Because you know why? Because that person doesn't exist anymore, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Um, and so talk to me about like how do you were with that firm, and now you're the president of Performance Protocol. So how the fuck does that happen?
Yeah, so the transition was interesting, and you know how, and we talked about this before, in calls and whatever. Just I think consuming information at such a rapid rate, and just wanting. I think when you get rid of those demons and you get out of that dark space, then all of a sudden now you're craving
You got some clarity,
things that you
bro.
never. Yeah, you're craving, insight, inspiration, and
Yes.
understanding around, hey, how what's the next path? What's the next thing forward? So I had and I don't blame people. I had a terrible relationship with my former business partner,
Okay.
and it was not, just not a great guy, and certainly not a good fit,
Okay.
and toxic for me. So when I came back, I ended up purchasing the firm outright, got rid of him in totality, gifted ownership and equity to longstanding employees as part of my gift back of, hey, let's ride in this together.
Right.
And and then basically went back and said, hey, look, anybody that's ever worked for me, that's ever, been a part of the ride when I was not the person I am,
Yeah.
if they ever come back, I'll always, always have a spot for them. If not, I'll create a spot or a job for them.
Sure. That's
And
awesome.
so I've done a lot of podcasts and things. I've never shared this, and I want to share because I think it's something that's it's almost so crazy you can't even make it up.
Talk to me.
So COVID happens. I have a small business, and in relative terms, and we get through COVID, flush all that stuff out, managed to keep our head above water, didn't have to borrow money, didn't have to, do any of that stuff, and kept everyone paid. And, super prideful of that. And then I had this guy come back to me, and I know that he's been through the ringer. He used to work for me back in the day. And he had, I think his father had died, a quick death when he was a young man. And then his girlfriend had just committed suicide, and he walked in and found her, and he struggled with addiction and whatever, but fundamentally good dude.
Good dude.
And
He's in the storm though.
yeah, he's in the storm. And he reached out and said, "Hey, I'm kind of looking for something. I'm looking for grounding." And I said, "Hey, look, I'll help." So I kind of create a role. Not kind of, I did create a role for him
Right.
and that I didn't even need, but I made that promise to myself. So at this point, I had moved from Michigan, like physically, I moved back to Arizona, and I was going back and forth once a month, for a week. And so my operation was in Michigan. Long story short, everyone knew my travel schedule. Well, this guy he wouldn't pan out. I mean, he was doing no work. He was just sucking up space, and he's creating issues inside of the office. And my DO kept calling me, and she would be like, "Hey, it's just not going to work." So I say,
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm not scheduled to travel back."
John is not doing the job you need him to be doing.
Yeah, or he was doing no job, to be
Yeah,
quite
yeah,
honest.
man.
So without getting too far down the rabbit hole, I said, "Hey, I'm not going to be there for another 2 weeks. I'm not going to hold on to him for 2 weeks. Just let's let him go." So we did it honorably and admirably. And he was
Yeah.
like, "Hey, what about the money you owe me?" I said, "Look, I've never taken money from anyone. Here's your money. Like, if you ever need a reference, whatever, I'll be happy to give you whatever." Well, I'm coming back in a week and a half, 2 weeks. So I fly back on a Tuesday. And so, me, I get in and I take a red eye, I get in at 5
Yeah.
a.m., right to the office, work full day, back home at my cottage at, 10 and maybe 9:30. And I get a phone call from a buddy of mine who owns a restaurant that's right in the same complex as my office. And he goes, "Hey, bro, I think your office is on fire." What? No. So he sends me a picture. Well, I have an Android and he has an iPhone. So he
Oh,
sends me a
gee.
picture, and it could be an office in Tahiti for all I know, because it's so grainy I can't even
Right.
make it out. So I call one of my employees who lives close to the office and, "Hey, kind of a random ass question. Could you go by the office and see if it's
And
on
make sure
fire?"
it's not burning to the ground.
So she, gets dressed or whatever, and she goes and she calls me back, and like 15 minutes later, and she said, "Yeah, it's not just the office, it's your office specifically." So without getting too far, into
Yeah.
it, that son of a gun had gotten, so down, so angry, so upset, that was in his mind, that was the smartest thing to do. And I didn't know at the time who had done it, but I got to the office. It takes me about an hour or so to get to
Right.
where my office location is. And I get there, go up. I'm talking to the fire captain, and I think one of the cops had shown up, and I go through, and I'm just trying to look into just absolute chaos everywhere, water everywhere,
Oh,
files
yeah.
flushed, like just everyone's office is screwed, but my office is kind of crispy. And I get in there, and everything's kind of smoldering. All the windows are blown out. Um, and they said, "Hey, did it look like this?" They said, "Did it look like this when you left?" And I go, "On fire? No."
Yeah. No.
But
No.
so
Yeah.
he goes, "No, as everything where it
Ask
was."
ask
And
me a
here
better question. Yeah.
I'm thinking, okay, no, nothing is where it was. But I said specifically, there's all this stuff stacked up on top of my desk that I just assumed you guys put it there. And I know. So then I happened to look at the whiteboard, and there was a message, and it was kind of pseudo encrypted, but it had some different words on it that I knew exactly who it was in the moment.
Right.
And so as I decompress, I give all the information to the cops. Well, I say all of that to say this: in that moment, so you go through fear, frustration, anger, anxiety, hey, what's the go forward? So you're processing all this stuff at such a rapid rate, as everyone in LE knows. And I'm not even on that side like this. Now it's just a personal attack. So
Right.
I get down to my car after, giving the officers whatever information and talking to the
Yeah.
the fire department, get down to my car. So this whole thing takes about 25 minutes. I get down to my car and I sit there for about 5 minutes. I said, okay, you can be angry for 5 minutes. And it wasn't even 5 minutes, it was like 30 seconds. In that moment, I sat there and I said, hey, this sucks and it's going to suck and it's going to be a long road ahead. But how bad must have his life had to suck that was the smartest and that was the go forward strategy. I should be blessed that I'm in the situation that I had an office to burn down. But moreover, I'm blessed even more because I'm not in that mental state. So I was, a sick man's prayer over and over and over again because that wasn't me. Sure, was I angry? Yeah,
Of
absolutely, because
course.
it, financially frustrating and it was super detrimental to me, personally. But at the end of the day, it was there's not a single chance in hell that I would have operated from a place of grace or dignity had I not already gone through all the craziness and
Mm.
chaos that I had. So that
Gave you
made me
some
even more,
perspective.
yeah, it made me more curious about, hey, how do I lean into this? And I've been a corporate executive coach for a long time, and like, how do I lean into this even more? And coming from the world of service, of being in the
Everybody
military,
talks about
work,
failure and troubles as being opportunities. Okay. Oh, that's great on paper, man.
yeah,
But
yeah.
this is one of those rubber meets the road moments. Where's the opportunity here?
Yeah, so then it came in the form of, so it was interesting. So everything happens for a reason, and this is how I got into where I'm at. Um, I had I had worked my business and built my business to the point where I would qualify to get into entrepreneurs organization, which there's a whole bunch of credentials and stipulations and monetary things and numbers of employees, et cetera, that you have to do in order to qualify. Well, I had built my business large enough to get accepted into EO, and I was coming up on a forum retreat literally the very next week after the fire. And I called, one of my floor mates and I said, hey, this is what happened. And I don't even know which way the wind's blowing yet. And
Right.
she told me, she said, this is exactly the reason why you're in forum, because we're going to be able to get you away, get you perspective, etc. And it was exactly what I needed. Well, in this trip, I end up meeting this guy, John, and John was facilitating for our retreat. Well, he says, "Hey, I think there's somebody you need to meet. They have this coaching company, and they're working it off of Axon at first, but I think there's something there where one, you have a passion for people in public safety, you have a passion for executive coaching, and obviously you're a skilled entrepreneur and skilled coach. There might be a there, and I ended up reaching out to the CEO, Daniel Falk, and he honestly blew me off. And I was coming from a place of, hey, I just want to help. Tell me if you need help, because I
Right.
was working really like 15, 20 hours a week in my current capacity, where my employees were really pretty much running everything. And I had this, chaotic event happen, but I was packaging all of that.
Right.
And he blows me off. So fast forward, and my brother and I think you and I talked about this. My brother had ALS and was in the process of on his last road. I think he maybe had, I think, 6 months left in hindsight. And I was going on a cruise with him. Like, we was taking, he was in a wheelchair and shit, but
Right.
my sister and I were taking him on a cruise. So I told Daniel, finally calls me back and says, hey, I really want to talk to you. And I said, well, put that on pause. I have to go take care of my brother and do this because it's gonna
Right.
be a lot of fun. And it was. And so came back and we jump on a call, and we were supposed to meet in person. We ended up jumping on a Zoom call. And after 5 minutes, there was this crazy cosmic connection. And he says, bro, like, we have to sit down together. So the very next day, I cleared my schedule. We sat down and they said, hey, we're looking for a fourth on our executive team. You could be that guy. Long story short, go in. I said, hey, let me talk to my wife, figure out, because from a timing perspective, like, this is going to put me on the road. And
Right.
I,
What's this look like
I'm in a
for our
good spot
family?
right now.
Right.
And so go through that whole thing, and then probably about 3 months into that relationship, and they realized very quickly my experience and my skill set, and the board came to me and said, hey, would you consider a more in-depth role? We'd like for you to kind of be the leadership. We'd like for you to be the guy that's, shooting, moving, communicating, making things happen, from a company standpoint, but also from an outward facing standpoint, because you're able to do things that not a lot of people are able to do. So it was just this
Nice.
perfect fit. And so listen, this is what's crazy, and you'll respect this. Had I not gone to treatment, had I not taken my company over, I never would have gotten to EO. I never would have had the fire happen. I never would have forced myself to go.
Right.
And I never would have made that connection, and never would be where I'm at.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Remove
when
one of
you
those,
say,
remove one of those
yeah,
moments from that chain.
yeah. And then you look at it, and the funny thing is, in the addict mind, we ignore every single sign, right? And I was in such an open and vulnerable place all the time, where I was actively looking for signs. Like, give me a sign of where to go, give me a sign of what to do, give me a sign of who to pack,
Yeah.
who to prioritize, give me a sign of X, Y, or Z. And at that moment, I was willing to read the signs, and then I had the courage to act on them. And even though some of them were uncomfortable and unknown and unfamiliar,
Right.
but it was amazing. So I
Hmm.
say all of that too. That's how I got to where I'm at, bro.
Yeah. And that's, again, um, so many messages in there. Like, you know, you don't know. You don't know the why behind where you're at right now sometimes, so and the best that you can do is just embrace it, man. Embrace that unknown, and keep moving forward. That's awesome, man. I And so now you've they recognized your skill sets as you can learn a lot of things, but there are some things, man, that you just got to be gifted with the way to interact, the vibe, the essence of the vibe that you give off. That's nothing that you can learn or pick up in a course. And so, and I experienced this when I first met you. There is there's a calm confidence about you that pulls people close. And
That's one of the kindest things anyone's ever
well,
said to me.
and it's and if I'm the leader of an organization and I want somebody to run in a certain direction with a concept or an idea, I want that guy to be you. And so you're kind of tasked with heading up this branch, this division of performance protocol, which is a recruitment and retention and coaching initiative that is targeting the entire country.
Yeah.
Not a not a not a small endeavor, man. Like where we focusing? We're focusing on Florida. No, we're focusing on the entire profession of first responders from Anchorage, Alaska, to Key West, Florida, uh, and and let's get after it, man. Let me know how that works out for you. Talk to you later. Bye. Right.
Yeah.
And man, and you are off to the races. And I got to see you present at an FTO conference, and it wasn't so much a presentation, excuse me, as it was a conversation, man. And I like how you kind of, you're like, listen, PowerPoint's great. Here's your slide. Okay, PowerPoint's over. What are your pain points? How do I help you? What are the issues you're experiencing? And you came right out of the gate, man, and you spoke about people. Like the solution and the problem is one and the same.
Yes.
And so can you touch on that, man, a little bit? Because I just thought that, I like to think that I'm the king of pointing out the obvious, like because sometimes the obvious is what eludes us. It's where
Mhm.
we can't see the forest through the trees. We're in it. We're in the middle of it. It's obvious to everybody else, but it escapes you. And for as long as we've had, I don't think any of these problems we have are new. I think everything is very cyclical, and I think we fail to plan. And so we end up finding ourselves in these situations that require monumental efforts to correct. But I think it always gets back to the root of the problem and the solution, which is people. Can you speak to that for us, man?
Yeah, and thank you for the kind words. I know I just let you go off on a giant diatribe without interrupting you, but yeah, thank
No,
you.
man. It's
Um,
listen. It's easy to say, bro. It's easy to say. You're a good egg, man. You're a good egg.
yeah, thanks, brother. Appreciate that. I think from the people perspective, it's pretty simple. Where I open all the time and I'll ask, what are the number one and number two issues in law enforcement? People say recruiting, retention, and other people might say, political issues, social issues,
Right.
whatever. But if you packaged it, like 90% of the people are going to say recruitment and retention. Like, hey, we can't bring people in and we can't keep good people. Um, so it's safe to say that the problem is people. And I said, okay, what is the only thing that solves every single problem in law enforcement? And the answer is people. You know, Staffing fixes all issues. It fixes forced overtime. It fixes morale issues. It fixes cultural deficiencies. It fixes everything. Because if you have the vacancies filled, then ultimately now it's just about rhythmic leadership. How do you bring in those key components and those key figures inside of your organization that are going to make people connected? And and I would say that there's a whole bunch of whimsical shit that you can say, and people are like, oh, that sounds great. No, it's true. It's true. I get a chance to witness it because there are agencies that are fully staffed. There are agencies that have great culture, and they're in shitty places. So
Right.
it's not about, hey, because we're in freaking Piedmont, North Dakota, or hey, we're in doggone Sandy Springs, Georgia, because everything's great in Sandy Springs. Well, you know what? Sandy Springs has its slew of issues too. But guess what? They're fully staffed. They have great culture. They have great connectivity, and they have fantastic leaders. And the key leader lets people lead. So if people fixes everything, and you can't keep people, and you can't get people, let's focus on those two things. So how do you focus on them? Well, people make people first, and start to create that connection and that connectivity. Because one of the things that you witnessed probably when we were at FTO, and I don't remember what the hell I said at that point, but one of the things that I drive home is we have moved as an industry. I guess let me start here. You mentioned, hey, this problem is a problem we've always faced. That's true. How we've chosen to look at it is what's created the monumental problem that it's become. Because as it started to get slowly worse, everyone had it on their strategic plan, everyone had it on their annual plan, and then what would happen is they get it swept under the rug. So I go ask key leaders now, say, hey, so you say recruitment and retention are your number one and number two issues. Fantastic. What have you done differently this year than you did last year or the last 5 years? In
Crickets.
that era of silence, that era of
Crickets.
silence is exactly what you hear.
Yeah.
So
Crickets.
we all know the very essence of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, or doing nothing over and over and over again and expecting a different result or outcome.
Right.
So that's where you say, okay, let's pull it back. Let's scale this whole thing back and figure out like what's the big hairy animal. And you hit it, and you're doing it now on the coaching side. So we backfilled on the retention side and said, hey, we're going to double down and figure out like what actually gets sustainability, what gets viability, what creates that understanding that people are connected, and it's making it about them. One of the things that happens in LE is everyone gets grouped together, right? One bag egg, one bad apple spoils a bunch and then some, but it also spoils attitudes, engagement, insight, integrity, etc. So now, when you look at it from a coaching perspective, well, the corporate sectors had it figured out for years and years and years. They've had leadership coaches for forever. They've had individualized and specialty coaches for forever. Why? Because it makes their organization sticky. It makes that person want to drive forward, and it's not packaged as, hey, this is just about your job.
Right.
It's not about your job. Like, if you fix the person, they'll fix your organization. So we realized very quick, like, that's the sticky wheel. But how do you introduce something that's not been introduced? And then how do you introduce it at a level that you have the capacity and you have competent individuals to go and serve? And then how do you get these old dogs to start biting, biting off and looking at new tricks?
Right.
It's that was kind of the uphill battle on that side. And then the recruiting side is that's simple. It really is. It's simple. And I think people overcomplicate it and they over-engineer it. And it's not about hype videos. It's not about, putting someone into a digital funnel and following them and retargeting them and whatever. There's nobody that's ever going to go into law enforcement and says, hey, I watched this awesome
Right.
video of people rappelling out of helicopters and kicking in doors and whatever. One, that's not real, as we all know.
Right.
It really happens, but it doesn't really happen all the time.
Right.
Um, but that's not the level of engagement that you're going to get, and that's not, quite frankly, that's a waste of resources. So
Right.
if we go back to the people problem, invest in the people. we
Right.
we go through what, thousands and thousands and
Oh,
thousands of hours of training to hold a badge and a gun, yet we put these people in recruiting and they have no training, they have no understanding of what the job looks like, and they're trying to work through all these click funnels and work through the web flow and all this stuff, and we've digitized something that is super super personal. So one of the things that you heard me talk about is, hey, we need to rehumanize something that we've completely dehumanized. Pull
right.
the human interaction back into the game. Like, I'll tell you right now, John, you put me and you on the street in any beat in the country, we'll go out and be recruiting animals
Yeah.
because
Oh,
it's about that connection.
we have lost, like, when the individual no longer has passion for the job that they're doing,
Yeah.
what, see, your people are the magnet, right?
Yeah.
And when agencies in the cultures reporting that the vast majority of the people in this job right now would not recommend
Yeah.
their spouse,
Statistic is
their
80,
son or
83,
daughter
83%.
to go.
83%.
How the hell? So there's a problem with the culture here.
Yeah.
There's a problem with people because I should be, my kids should be fighting over who gets the endorsement, you know, to get on the job, right? And it's
Yeah.
not even a thought, man. So we're not, and that doesn't happen. Right? Nobody touts, oh, we make so much money. Money. I talk with bosses and they go, they got new cars this year and a 4% raise. I don't know why they're bitching. I go, God, I go, we need to go to lunch and we need to block off like 2 or 3 hours, and I need to tip the waitress really well because we're gonna hold her table for the afternoon, man. Um,
Yeah.
those aren't the things that people want. It's a
No,
culture.
I mean,
You
you
want a
know it.
culture of caring and support. And when you are
Uh,
felt that you're cared for and you're supported, you want other people to be a part of that.
Yeah. I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head. I mean, at the end of the day, that's where it's going to go, and that's where it needs to go. And if it doesn't go there, if an agency doesn't go there, if the industry doesn't go there, it's going to be very, very difficult to come back from it because we talked about it, and you've heard me say it at nauseum.
Yeah.
If you're recruiting today for what you need today and tomorrow, you're wrong. You need to be recruiting right now for what you need in 3 to 5 years because forecasting, projecting is something that again has been done in the civilian sector, but in the public sector is not. And we're not looking at, and all the analytics are there, all the information is there. You just have to be able to read it and understand it, and then make it, take that information and make it actionable. And that's, part of my frustration comes down to is, leaders, they get, they kind of get led down the bad road. Is it's something that hasn't been talked about previously. So now it's like, hey, we're looking at forecasting, we're looking at this, we're looking to pull analytics. I use Maui for example. When I first got there, they were down 120 against optimal staffing at 460. Well, that's crazy. That's crazy. So you're down 27%, and you have no go forward strategy. You have no, but it took a key leader. It took a key leader getting in the door um, with the new chief, and him saying, "Wait a second, how can this be our go forward and we have no plan?" And, how do we change? Like, what do we need to change? And then looking for help to find out, like, hey, what can we do differently? What should we be doing differently? And then, I went in there and looked at, hey, just said, hey, let's pull the data. Like, show me the data. If we understand the power of one, and everyone kind of looked at me crazy. I said, "What's the power of one?" I said, "If we can figure out how to get one individual, how many phone calls, how many texts, how many emails, how many transactions, how many tests, how many physicals, how many, then we can build a strategy to get 120. But if we don't know how to get one, we're just pissing in the wind and hoping that we fill up the ocean." And I said, "That's not that dog's not going to hunt."
Yeah.
So as we pulled the data back, and that's why they talk to the chief all the time, and he was like, "Man, I felt empowered." He said, "Because at that point, now I knew, like, there's a there, and we can actually chase something as opposed to blindly hoping that we're going to get a whole bunch of leads, a whole bunch of applicants, a whole bunch of
Yeah.
whatever." And it's empowering. I mean, it's no different than getting a new piece of equipment and hitting the street, right?
Right.
Now all of a sudden you feel like you can handle something better, or you, at least mentally, it creates that clarity around, hey, if this, then this, right?
Right.
It's that
It
if then
allows you
equation.
to be intentional about with your
Yeah.
actions.
Yeah. See, you always say everything so much better than me.
No, no.
This is why
I
I'm
just
on
like
your show. You're
I
not on
like
mine.
I like to listen, bro. I like to listen. I like to listen to people that are a lot smarter than me, and you're one of them, man. Um, so you right now, and you are, dude. I would love if you could gift me some of your frequent flyer miles. I you if you are not on a plane going someplace to solve a problem for somebody, you're on a plane back home, and you're
Yeah.
never as home as long as you want because I'm catching you in between flights today, and I appreciate that again. Um,
You can't drive impact from your ass. So, I mean, if you want to make a difference, you have to make a move, and that move, is different for everyone. So I think it's really just about figuring that out and then being passionate about it, because we talked about it just yesterday when I had to reschedule on you.
yeah, man.
Um, is if you want to make impact, you got to be present, and you can't do it from your ass. So, making moves is key. And I think how everyone combats that, how everyone goes at it's a little bit different. But,
Sure.
certainly for me, in the position and the role I'm in right now, that's where I'm needed.
Right. Hey, Greg. Um, one, I can't believe I've had you on for almost an hour. Thank you, because your time is extremely valuable. Um, your book, talk to me.
Yeah.
If you're gonna eat shit, don't nibble.
Yeah. Don't.
I
Yeah.
was like, come on, man, come on, what are you talking about here? Um,
I think it's, you want to
Kind
know
of
the
just,
essence of it.
yeah, man.
So, I mean, if you go back to, and that's kind of one of my operating principles. If you got to eat shit, don't nibble. Because the one thing that we get, wrapped up in is our own heads. And I think people, inaction is not action. And we all have to do big, hairy, hard shit all the time. And if you're going to do it, just do it. Don't question it. Don't worry about it.
Right,
Because guess what? If you got to eat shit, it's going to taste like shit regardless.
right,
And just get after it. And the problem, and why I kind of led with that, is this. Law enforcement's obviously in a crisis, and for me, understanding what goes on in the corporate sector, understanding what goes on as far as building something, from a business perspective, from a business structure, I think there's tremendous parallels, and there's stuff that hasn't been talked about, and there's a mindset that needs to happen. There's a mindset shift that has to happen, and that's at every level. That's not just key leaders. That's at every level.
right,
We always talk about how do you fix a problem. Well, it's mindset, methods, tools, and tactics. You have to change your mindset first, and then you have to create the methodologies and understand the methodologies as far as what is the path forward. And then it's the tools and tactics of, hey, how are you actually going to do it? What's required? Who's required? Um, so what I decided to start building is, hey, like, I see all of these issues, and I see a lot of things that honestly are quick and easy solves. So if you look at, in business, we'll break up things in quadrants and say, okay, what's the lowest what's the lowest hanging fruit with the highest yield? What is the hardest thing that's going to be hairy and long and labor intensive and cost intensive? So we break everything up into quadrants and say, okay, we can tackle these, and this is what we can afford to do right now, and this is something that we can't afford right now, but we can at least project. every agency across the country, I'll say, hey, Greg, we do things a little bit differently. We run our agency like we run a business. I'm going to tell you right now, that
Yeah,
could not
listen,
be
man,
further
when
from the
you hear
truth.
that, you got to start smiling inside going,
Well,
oh, really?
well,
Tell me more.
so,
Oh,
so,
tell me
so
about
one
your
of the things is,
business.
so
Oh,
well, and I always say like, hey, in business, I don't laugh, and I laugh, maybe I'll chuckle with them,
yeah.
but it's in business, we don't get money the next year if we zero out or we lose money. We don't get money the next year. You
If
go out of
law
business, which
enforcement
means
was a
everyone goes
business,
home.
man, we'd be
Yeah.
bankrupt.
But there are some agencies that are doing it really, really well, and there are some agencies that are dialed in. And as by and large, it's an issue, and it's not an issue to the point where like everything's going to blow up.
No,
But there are things that are being overlooked and not done that can be done, that are low hanging fruit, that ultimately don't cost a whole lot but drive tremendous impact.
sure.
And being able to touch on those and capitalize on those is tremendous. And by no means do I claim to be the law enforcement resident expert in anything, because I have people question me all the time, and I'm like, hey, I welcome that. I'm
Sure.
just a guy that happened to figure out a lot of the hacks because I don't have a jaded, influenced, ideology around what is and what
You
isn't.
don't have, you haven't been fed the poison of this is the way we've always done it.
Yeah, I hear it a lot.
Yeah, yeah, but you're not a disciple of that
Yeah,
philosophy,
yeah,
and that gives you a different perspective. That gives you
yeah,
a fresh set of eyes on a. And listen, our problems are universal. You know, my problems are yours, whether they're personal or professional. Not a lot of deviation in what the issues are, and so once you figure out the solution for one, figure out the solution for many, man. Um,
yeah. Success leaves clues. You know, adopt something that somebody else is doing. At the end of the day, it's probably relative to you in some way, shape, or form. How you maybe have to engage in and interact with it is
right,
maybe slightly different, but success leaves clues. And I think the industry is reactive, not proactive, in a lot of ways. And
right,
there, like I said, there are simple hacks that can actually help.
yeah.
And agencies I work with across the country, like, man, why did we never think of that? Because this is what you've always
Yeah,
done,
this is the
and that's
lens that
okay.
you've looked at this through. Right.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, but are you open to changing? Just like you
Yeah.
and I, were we open? We had to hit that moment in time, that moment in our lives that we were open to change and
Yep.
not hoping to change.
Right. Open and not hoping. And that's the thing, right? There's there are organizations, units, squads, agencies doing it right.
Yeah,
Why what's keeping us from, we don't need to reinvent anything, man. What are they doing that's working? Let's spend a week there. Hey, you mind?
yeah.
Hey, chief, you mind if I send my guy over to find out why you guys are so shit hot and you're not having the problems that everybody else is having? And you got to be
You
confident
want me to
enough.
answer that? You want me to answer that?
Yeah, no, yeah,
Well, because it's not healthy. It's not a healthy relationship. I mean, it's funny. I sit in front of a group of key leaders across the country in the same room, and I'm like, look, what I'm about to say is going to revolutionize the way that you think. And now all of a sudden, you are going to get more guarded with what you have, because you're going to realize that everybody in the room is hunting for the same exact people. And if that's how you view it, then you're part of the problem. Because here's the thing, and this is the simplest way to break it down. If you look at staffing numbers that are required versus the population in which you serve, and you tell me that you can't find X% of that population, you are the problem, because they're there. You're just not approaching it from a human standpoint, and you're waiting for everyone to come to you. Guess what? This isn't 1993.
no, it's not. It's completely different dynamic, and the things that didn't matter in the past are the only
Mm,
thing that matters now.
yeah.
And we, as a culture or as an organization, we haven't caught up with that philosophy yet. Um, dude, I love your insight. I love talking with you, man. Um, for the listener, we want to follow you, get involved with what you're doing. I've got some bosses and some agency leaders, they're probably already in contact with you. But in case they're not, Greg, what's the best way for somebody to get a hold of you? Maybe that, maybe they're running their recruitment division. Maybe they've been tasked with, hey, you better get these numbers up, man. We're down 15, we're down 20. What are you doing about it? And they don't know whether to shit or go blind, bro, because they've been doing the same thing, and it's not getting them the results that they need. How can we get in touch with you? How can we get you and your team in our shop to help guide us and mentor us and give us some direction so we can turn this thing around?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, you can follow me wherever American Airlines flies.
Yes, yes. I've got the Apple tracker in your luggage, bro. No worries. I know where you're at.
Um, but yeah, I mean, our website's, performance-protocol.com, and then you can look me up and sync me off of John's LinkedIn, which is the only social I play on.
Yep.
And I actually touch it. So if it goes silent for a little while, it's because I'm probably trying to get caught up. But
Yeah, man.
those are the two best places, and our contact information is on our website. John, you have my contact information, and anybody
Absolutely.
who's out there listening, I think I'm not sure if you have my email address that you're going to throw up or gift to everybody, but it's just super simple. It's Greg at performance-protocol.com.
Perfect. And I'll put all that information in the show notes. Greg, before I let you go, man, on your next flight, some words from you to the listener before we depart, brother. It can be anything, man. It doesn't have to be overly introspective. It can be whatever it is, man. Coming from you, it'll be of value. That I know.
Well, no pressure.
No, fuck no. No, listen, you're fucking Greg Z, man. Come on.
I think it just goes back to, kind of what we were talking about, and utilizing and leveraging that addict mind, which is so powerful. It could be powerful on the negative side, powerful on the productive side. It's truly, what is that next step? Where is that next step? And that, whether that's in your agency, in your life, wherever, what is that next step? And then how do you charge forward? Because everyone said, hey, every journey begins with the first step. That's all cute, but it's, where do you want to go? And then, are you willing to do what it takes to get there? And I think from our perspective, it's, you made a decision based out of chaos that you created. And then you had to take that first slimy, sludgy step forward to figure out, who do I want to be? Where do I want to be? You can look at that from a personal standpoint. You can look at that from an agency standpoint. You can look at that from an individual and a human standpoint. And I think that's so, so powerful, is combat the fears and anxiety around it, and just, take the first step, whatever that may be, and wherever it is that you want to go.
Brother, man, it begins and ends with you, man. Ladies and gentlemen, Greg Zaroslinski, president of Performance Protocol. Thank you, brother, man, for taking the time to sit down with us. I learned so much. I got a lot of the why answered behind who you are, and that was super insightful. Thanks for your time, man, and I appreciate what you do.
Yeah, pleasure. So one quick thing, and I don't know if you're going to cut, but what I'll say is this: like-minded people attract like-minded people. There was something about you that's contagious, that's infectious, that ultimately I was like, that guy is my human. And I can't thank you enough for having me on. I can't thank you enough for continuing to be patient with me. But the work that you're doing, John, is fantastic work, and the world needs more of you, not just the industry. So,
I appreciate
continue
that,
to strive forward. And there's any way I can help you, you have my information. You give me a buzz.
Yeah, man, I'm a big fan as well, man. And I think together, that's how we get this thing done.
Yeah. Life's a team game.
Yeah, it always has been, man. It always has been. And that is that, Greg Z. Thank you, man.
You got it, brother.
Thank
you. Appreciate you.
That was great.